Do you like courtroom drama? There is a reason why this genre is one of the most popular across television, movies, and books. From Perry Mason and Matlock to LA Law, Boston Legal, and movies like A Few Good Men, The Verdict, and the countless John Grisham books that fly off the shelves. People love legal stories. There's something thrilling about watching justice unfold, arguments made, objections raised, surprise evidence introduced, and verdicts delivered. I went to law school for 4 years, fully expecting high drama, passionate speeches, and someone shouting, "You can't handle the truth!" But sadly, there were no cinematic moments, no shocked witnesses, no dramatic monologues, and definitely no one yelling, "Out of order!" or "I rest my case" with flair. I think that's partly why I ended up in the rabbinate. At least in synagogue life, there's still room for a little drama. This past week's Torah portion, Parashat Pinchas, includes one of the most radical and inspiring legal moments in the entire Torah. 5 women, Mahla, Noah, Nogla, Milka, and Tirza, the daughters of a man named Zelophehad, approach Moses and the entire leadership with a demand. The situation arises from a legal gap in the existing Torah laws. As the Israelites prepared to enter the land of Israel, God commands the land to be apportioned by tribal families through the male line. But Zelophehad, who died in the wilderness without sons, leaves behind only daughters, putting their family at risk of losing their portion altogether. These 5 women challenge the system itself. They do not do so with force or rebellion. They come forward respectfully. With moral clarity and legal intelligence, they speak out not to overturn the system, but to refine it, out of loyalty to their father and a desire for justice within the framework of the covenant and the law. And Moses, rather than dismissing them or falling back on tradition, does something crucial. He brings their case before God. And after some deliberation, God responds, "Ken benot Zelophehad dovrot." The daughters of Zelophehad speak rightly. Their claims are accepted and a new law is created. The Torah itself is amended in response of human initiative and moral insight. And this is one of the only few times in the Torah where a legal claim brought from the people is affirmed by God without rebuke or correction. But there's something even deeper happening here. The fact that Moses didn't know what to do and turned to God. This shows that even the greatest prophet of all time knew the limits of his understanding. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs observed that in this moment, and I quote, "Moses acts not as a judge, but as a learner," end quote. He models a kind of leadership rooted in humility and responsiveness, not uncertainty and control. According to Rabbi Sachs, this passage shows us that law in Judaism is not a closed book. It is a conversation across generations. Indeed, the Talmudic rabbis embraced this story as a model for halachic process. They noted that not only did the daughters bring their case successfully, but they did so with wise reasoning and love for the Torah. As a result, they were praised for their wisdom and their bravery. Tivka Freimer-Kensky, one of the leading Jewish feminist Bible scholars, writes that the Torah's approach here is not about rigid laws imposed from above, but about a, quote, living tradition that can and must respond to human concerns. She calls the case of the daughters of Zelophehad an opening in the wall, a crack in the system that allows for a more inclusive and compassionate vision of justice. This episode is an example of the Torah's flexibility, of halakha's capacity for evolution. It reminds us that Torah is not static. Torah is alive. Torah is listening. It's responding and is adapting. But not everyone throughout history has seen this as an invitation to evolve. Many legal traditions, including some within our own, have at times resisted change. That's why this Torah portion is so important. It reminds us that our own sacred text carries within it a blueprint for responsible, thoughtful adaptation. Judith Plaskow, another influential feminist theologian, urges us not just to celebrate this story as a one-time correction, but to notice how many other stories never got told, how many voices were not heard, how many injustices were left unaddressed because those affected had no platform, no access, and no visibility. She writes, and I quote, "If we are to take seriously the legacy of the daughters of Zelophehad, we must ask whose voices are still waiting to be heard, and what must we do to make space for them?" End quote. Torah must listen, and we, its guardians and interpreters, must be ready to hear. Moses could have said, "This is the way it's always been," but he didn't. He paused, he listened, he brought the case forward, and the law responded. There is also something beautiful in the way this moment bridges the legal and the personal. These 5 daughters fought for their family, for their father's memory, and for their rightful place among their people. They didn't want to be excluded from the land. They didn't want their father's name to be forgotten. And they were not afraid to speak up. In doing so, more than receiving an inheritance, they became part of the inheritance of Torah itself. Our tradition often describes Torah as Torat Chaim, a living Torah. That means that it can grow, it can change, it can respond to new realities without losing its core commitments. This is the challenge we have when we partner with God, the partnership of heaven and earth, to interpret and apply halakha. We can find ways that are both true to halakha and at the same time acknowledge the truth of human reality. As Rabbi Sachs, to quote him again, wrote, "Torah is not a fossilized code. It is the ongoing project of discovering how eternal truths apply in changing circumstances." End of quote. May we be the inheritors of this tradition, not only by studying it, but by living it, shaping it, and when necessary, amending it with wisdom, with humility, and with love. And may we have the courage of the daughters of Zelophehad to speak up when something isn't right, to claim our place in the story, and to help Torah becomes what it's meant to be, a light of justice for every generation. I rest my case.